Though it was the epilogue of the original Zordon era, Power Rangers Lost Galaxy was a strange one for me, because it's one of those seasons where I just don't have the same connection to it that I do about the other ones I've reviewed up to now. After In Space gave us near endgame level closure perfection, the first cold change in cast and location made 12-year-old Ryan feel it was actually the right time to bow out of the franchise for good. And look how well that turned out. I think the only reason I got started on Hasbro's toys of it was because the initial figure was Magna Defender and came as soon as Wave 2 of the Lightning Collection, and it was, at the time, significantly cheaper to pre-order whole waves than actually collect individual figures. You basically paid the same for the wave as you would buying 3 of the 4 figures separately. Those were good times. In hindsight though, they were clearly just trying to get us addicted into building as many teams as we could. But it seemed like a no-brainer at the time. Then the 2-pack of Red with Red Psycho followed close behind, and it already seemed like we were getting somewhere. I was in for another team. Little did we know back then that it would take until the very last year of the collection to get the 2 female Rangers, and we're still missing a few things that make it frustrating for collectors like me. We've still got a whole team to talk about, and like Mighty Morphin Season 1, Zeo and Turbo, they're a season where their helmets match their Zords. Fun little anecdote to kick off with there as we go into 6 things to know about the Lost Galaxy Lightning Collection. Yeah, I've actually got 6 things to mention this time. Number 6, a different shade of red. I think it's fair to say that during the Lightning Collection, Hasbro tried a few approaches that they then abandoned. One of them was these 2-packs, Ranger and Villain. I think the only ones worth getting were the Astronomer packs and Scorpina, maybe. Red Lost Galaxy versus Red Psycho Ranger seemed, at the time, like a sensible way to get 2 figures that most people probably would buy in one set. But then Hasbro would pull a Hasbro by doing something very annoying when they double dipped and released both of these figures again. The Red Psycho became part of the Amazon exclusive 5-pack, so you had to get that. It was the only way to get the other 3 colours. That meant you had 2 Red Psychos and possibly 2 Blue Psychos if you bought the initial fan channel individual release of that. Red Lost Galaxy returned as an individually carded release too, with a new head sculpt, different weapon, and brighter details across the suit. It was a more, let's say, consistent shade of white everywhere you see it compared to that first release, where they were still working out how to do that. So you don't really need to keep that first 2-pack set if it wasn't for that different head sculpt and for the smaller mission from the new release of the full-length Quasar Saver. We'll talk a bit more about that later. I can't decide which Leo version I prefer, so I'm going to be showing both in this review, seemingly interchangeably. The face complexion are obviously different shades, the new one's a bit more comic book-like, and actually the helmet shades are slightly different as well. Overall though, both fine. Number 5, Weapon Remix. Talk to people who collect this team, and from most you'll probably hear frustration about the decision to alternate the approach to weapon accessories. Yes, all the Lightning Collection multi-year team building hallmarks are here, the boxes don't match, one Ranger was released twice, the pinless and even the sculpted uniform parts change over time over the course of the releases. All that has become par for the course, but the weapons, the approach to weapons is the real head scratcher this time. I'm actually kind of reminded that back in the day Bandai would often do 2 sets of basic line action figures a year, so you could effectively end up with a mishmash of Rangers from the same team but from different sets and styles. I know, for example, for Zeo we had 3 Automorphins and 3 action feature figures, which were the only ones to include the signature weapons. Similarly for Turbo, I got 1 shifter figure and the rest of the team as the Turbo key figures. Later I became a lot more hyper aware of the distinction and knew to only buy into one sort of set so that all their accessory weapons would match. Hasbro might only have one version of Lightning Collection, but they sure treated it like these figures were from different assortments. Red's initial release only included his Quasar Saver, but his individual release included his cannon launcher. Green, blue and pink included their trans dagger weapons, But Yellow neglected that and also came with a cannon launcher again. Oh, and missed her Quasar Saver again. What was their thinking here? Obviously the cannon launcher looks like a more expensive part to produce because of the size of it, it's got stickers, and the fact that neither ranger that got one had their full-size Quasar Saver included. But then why do it at all? You've just created a problem that you didn't need to create, one that you're not going to get chance to solve. Why only sometimes give us the collapsed Quasar Sabers when even back in Wave 2, Magna Defender came with both versions of his Magna Sword? However, he's missing a civilian head, so he's not that much of a slam dunk either. The roll of the dice for the constant accessory trade-off was being changed within members of the same team, and it was just a very frustrating goof that they were committing, without care for the kinds of very particular people Power Ranger fans, and actually grown-up toy collectors in general, are. There are times when you can get away with doing stuff like this, but when you're selling uniformed teams who all have their own variants of the same accessory, it's not endearing to the collectors to be put on the back foot like this, because it then becomes a collection that never feels officially complete. Number 4, to the 10th, 11th or 12th power. For saying it was the start of soft annual resets for the brand, Lost Galaxy more than made it up to their heritage with visits from the In Space team as they fought the Psycho Rangers, they used the Astro Megaship as one of their bases, they had a constant companion in Alpha 6, they returned a year later for their team up with Lightspeed Rescue, and of course Leo, Damon and Corone, yes, Astronomer Corone, would return throughout the franchise, Leo first for Forever Red, and then the three of them as part of the legendary battle another 11 years after that. And while we didn't see the actual Rangers, their Megazord made an appearance another 9 years after that in Cosmic Fury's Mega Megazord battle scene in Season 30, 23 years after their actual season of the show. So I admit, they're up there in terms of reach across the series. They're another team that benefits from you having made previous purchases. So borrow whichever figures you want. Alpha 5 can sub in as Alpha 6, Cloaked Andros, and then In Space could be there for the To the 10th Power episode. Technically that episode title was incorrect as it was the 11th Power because Mike was there. Does anyone know why Zane wasn't? He could be. You could have the 12th Power if you want him to be part of it now. You could borrow the Psychos as villains, not show accurate and actually destroyed by comic lore, but the addition of the Boom Studios Green Psycho means you can colour match it to the team and have Black Psycho fight Magna Defender. Crazy how they can double in for foot soldiers for pretty much any team, isn't it? And while we haven't had a Corone head yet, the Astronomer head represents the Blink and You'll Miss It reference from the extended edition of Legendary Battle, where she says, "I love being a Power Ranger." A nice moment they never should have cut out, but I guess it is a deep cut if you haven't seen two 90s seasons of the show, which they probably didn't expect for the average Nickelodeon viewer at the time. If you want to do a Forever Red team up, you now have 7 of the 10 Rangers for it. Oh, we were so close. Leo arrived late to that episode with Orico, so you could logically leap towards the idea that they also know the Alien Rangers. Hey, maybe all those space-based Rangers are tight. I guess the 2014 Action Heroes by Bandai are still the best officially Power Rangers way to show that particular team up all in the same scale. Or the Super Shodo Sentai figures from Japan if you collect those. It unfortunately doesn't look like we're going to get Lightspeed Rescue anymore, so Blue will just have to stand in for now, otherwise that would have been another cool team up. Number 3, Heads Up. You know, for a season made up of 8 Rangers, a little bothersome to only get 5 heads. One of those is a cheat, because for Magna Defender, that is his true form, as he's some sort of alien, isn't he? But then his body becomes the Magna Defender power that Mike harnesses and wears. Kind of gross if you think about it too much. So Hasbro did a Hasbro by saying that this figure represents that first Magna Defender form before Mike inherited the suit or carcass of Magna Defender. Yeah, I'm not buying that, but sure, I guess he is a unique sculpt with lots of intricate parts like shoulder pads, horns, a cape. A civilian head probably would have sent them over budget for this release, but it's still smarts, because however else are we ever supposed to get a Mike head if not with the Ranger he is? especially given that we got 2 heads for Leo. Could one of them double in for Mike? Yeah, I guess so. It looks a little uncanny though. I actually think your best bet is using the Zeo Smiley Jason head, the one that came with the SDCC 2019 set. That actually looks more like him. Then for our Pink Ranger, it's rightfully Kendrick's, but there's no Corone. You could use one of the 2 Astronomer heads to mimic that moment from Legendary Battle, obviously, but what head could actually serve as Corone? We're picking on the Zeo heads again because I think Zeo Cat actually stands in really decently for Corone. And as I forgot to return one of my Lost Galaxy Pinks during a return with Amazon, it is possible to have too much pink energy, even if in show lore there's only one Quasar Saver. While we're on the subject of Corone, this follows on from Cat starting the precedent in Power Rangers of a villain going on to becoming a Ranger afterwards. No, I'm not going to include Tommy in this because he was always Green Ranger from the very start. This very narrow category is characters that start as baddies and go on to become a Ranger later. You can go up as far as Heckle from Dino Charge morphing into Dark Ranger during Cosmic Fury. Astronomer into Corone took a while to get there, and unlike Cat, it was never the original plan to turn her into a Ranger. There was a bit of a fake out in space before she gets robotized, where she wears purple. But with Lost Galaxy, they finally realised this tease, and it was nice connective tissue between seasons, handled well, as Kendricks does come back to life and handles the power for the reunion team up with Lightspeed, then Corone handles it for Legendary Battle. I like when there's a grey area on who's going to show up. You kind of get that with all of the Mighty Morphins, apart from Blue, obviously Green and White, and the Turbos, apart from Blue. Ranking the heads as I like to do then, the ones we did get are a great set. Having said that, number 6, Maya. Yeah, they did her dirty. So generic, this could be anyone, but it isn't much of Maya. Also very cartoony. Number 5, Leo Original. It's fine, and at the time it was definitely a good likeness. It just looks a little too pale and serious now. I think compared to the newer one, it makes it seem colder. And it's also got that early print style where the eyes aren't fully there. Number 4, Kendricks. It's not a nice hair sculpt, and technically Kendricks should be below Leo were it not for the glasses. Kendricks is the only figure to feature these accessories other than Remastered Blue, which came at a much higher price point. Number 3, Leo Updated. So I'm going to rank his second release actually as a bit better. It's a little bit more comic booky, but there's something much more him and less generic here. Number 2, Damon. A fine and very realistic looking head, no notes here. And number 1, Kai. This is one of those head sculpts that is so impressive. It joins Tanya and Adam in the Lightning Collection Hall of Fame of having nailed it. Massive, massive props to whoever did this one. It's always fun to have civilian head options for the Power Rangers, while the girls' likeness don't reflect their later release positions in the line when they were generally doing better head sculpts. It's nice that overall the team is very recognisable together, and as ever, the better ones prop up the not so good ones. Number 2, Quasar Saver. So, the big problem with this set, why do I have 6 Lost Galaxy main team Rangers, but only 4 Quasar Sabers? Yeah, I hate this. This was another of those inconvenient Hasbro decisions that leaves you short in something that should be standard. Quasar Sabers are that kind of accessory that are basically staples of this team, much like the Chroma Fury Sabers of Dino Fury or the Dino Charge Morphers. They're things that are so ingrained in the tapestry of the team that not having them is like them missing an arm or something. Unlike Zeo's sidearms, they actually did nice, shorter, holstered modes for all of these, and this has been consistently packaged with each main Ranger. But for some reason, Leo's second and Maya's only releases left out the full-size Quasar Sabers. I think Hasbro didn't help themselves here because they stuck a decal on each sword of the Ranger's Animal Zord symbol, their Galactabeast symbol. They didn't need to do that, they probably made it harder to make, whereas they could have just had one version and pressed a load of them to ensure that each Ranger that needed a full-size Quasar Saber actually got one. They never had that foresight, and as we know, it wasn't uncommon for them to redesign the accessories over and over rather than actually benefit from having done the work previously. I don't know why they did that. It seems remarkably inefficient and expensive to me. So yeah, your options are, if you don't mind the teeny symbol not matching, buying additional figures. Pink is the obvious one to me. You can use one as Astronomer and one as Corone. Another option, which I managed to do as well, was get a bag off AliExpress when sellers were offering random Lightning Collection accessories, I'm guessing from the factory. But the way things come and go in there, I wouldn't expect it's still going to be there right now. Then I suppose you've got the option of using 3D printing sellers like Ranger Forge. That might be the best option now. And number one up, one down. The thing I want to finish with is the Lost Galaxy Megazord 7-inch figure release. This was neither Lightning Collection nor mainline, but sits slightly outside of both in Hasbro's tangential Weird Ideas line. Don't really know what to call it. And this was basically the only true Megazord from that short-lived series that wasn't Mighty Morphin. The other was NinjaCon from Ninja Storm, but that doesn't count. But if you think it does, there is a video on my Patreon channel that my supporters can go and watch about it. Anyway, it's cool. It can hold the Condor or clip it on its back, and it's kind of cool to have this as an option of something else to have in your Lost Galaxy Lightning Collection display. And this is my first ever Lost Galaxy Megazord. They got me eventually, even if I would always prefer a combiner. Because as intercompatible as the season is with other figures, as we've talked about, it's a season that only has the Rangers as a part of it. Basically, there's no villain figure. Not many Lightning Collection teams have no direct villain, either main, henchman, or Ranger rivals. From the completed TV continuity, it's currently just this and Dino Charge. Yes, I know the Psychos are a shared option within Space, a season that's awash with villain figures of its own already, but yeah, kind of strange to feel like this team is one up and one down on figure expectations. You get a Megazord, but you don't get a big bad. Who knows, maybe they'll one day do a 2-pack with Trakina, Corone, an additional head for Mike, and a full-sized Saber for Maya. We can dream. And after all, they did prove with the single-release COG that they were willing to fix past mistakes. So that's it, a record 6 points to make about 7 Ranger figures and a Megazord action figure. I will say that the detail on their helmets and Quasar Sabers are beautifully done. The fact that we quietly completed this team was a nice result given how many teams in similar situations slipped through the cracks. It's a good set and one I can recommend with the caveats we've covered of what you'll probably be missing. But for one of the well-regarded original Saban seasons, Lost Galaxy is definitely a good one to have. Thanks very much for watching to the end of the video. I hope you'll like it if it was useful, and subscribe if you want to watch another one just like it in the future. As my Patreons will already know, I've still got 4 more Lightning Collection figure videos to make for you. So until the next time, see you later.